The jacket lay across the passenger seat like an accusation, its fine fabric crumpled from the way it had been hastily tossed there. It was hers, and yet, it wasn't. Her boss's jacket. The dark charcoal fabric was familiar to me, not because I had ever seen it before, but because I had been to her office enough times to recognize the sleek, expensive tailoring. It was the kind of jacket worn by someone who had power, someone who didn't think twice about leaving it in the car of a woman like my wife. A woman who had always told me that work was just work. I had been waiting for her outside the cafe, as we had planned, waiting for the usual routine of her picking me up after her meeting. But this time, when I saw the jacket on the seat, everything changed. My chest tightened in that familiar, suffocating way it does when you realize something is amiss, but you don't know exactly what it is. That's when I saw her coming out of the cafe, a little too quickly, a little too nervously, and my stomach sank. She saw me looking at the jacket, and for a moment, she froze. I knew instantly that something was wrong. There had always been a calm in her movements, a collectedness that kept our world together. But now, as her eyes flicked between the jacket and me, there was only tension. "Hey," she said, walking quickly to the car, smiling in that way she did when she wanted to hide something. "You're early." Her voice wasn't natural. It was pitched high, the kind of voice people use when they're covering something up. My eyes never left the jacket. It was all I could see, its dark presence suffocating the air around us. "What's this?" I asked, my voice steady, but my heart racing. I tried to keep it neutral, but the weight of the question was already hanging in the air. "Is this his?" The way her shoulders tensed, the way her hand almost instinctively reached for it, told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't an innocent mistake. It wasn't just that she had left her boss's jacket in the car. It was the way it was left. The way she didn't even notice. I hadn't seen it before, but I knew the look of someone who had just been caught. Caught in something they didn't want to admit, not even to themselves. "Mark, please, it's not what you think," she said quickly, rushing to open the car door. She tried to hide the jacket under her bag, but the movement was too quick, too nervous. I stayed silent, watching her. I couldn't stop myself from looking at her, the way she was suddenly avoiding my gaze, the way her fingers shook as they reached for the door. The car, once a space of comfort for us, now felt like a prison, like a place I no longer belonged. "Just tell me," I said, my voice quieter now. "Tell me why his jacket is in our car." She looked at me, her expression unreadable for a second. Then her eyes softened, almost as if she were trying to prepare herself to say something. But the words never came. Instead, she stepped back, taking a deep breath. I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I didn't want to hurt you, Mark." I felt my pulse quicken. "What does that mean, Sarah? What aren't you telling me?" Her face faltered, the mask she had worn so easily for months slipping away, revealing something I hadn't expected. Vulnerability. Fear. And something else that was too painful to recognize. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. She seemed to be searching for the right thing to say, something that would make the moment better, but there was nothing she could say to fix this. "We're just working together," she said finally, her voice strained, but still with that edge of uncertainty. "It's nothing. I promise." But I didn't believe her. Not now. Not after seeing the way she had reacted, after feeling the tension in the air. I wasn't stupid. I had seen the signs, the late nights, the long meetings she never mentioned, the way she had become distant over the past few months. But now, with the jacket sitting in the seat beside me, I realized I had missed everything. I had let it slide, thinking I was just being paranoid, but now it all made sense. "Sarah," I said, taking a deep breath. "You're not telling me the truth. And I don't know if I can trust you anymore." Her face crumbled. "Mark, please don't do this. Please. I don't want to lose you." Her voice cracked on the last words, and I could see the panic in her eyes. "It's just that he's been a friend to me. I've been stressed, and he's been there. We've been working together closely, and I've been trying to keep it together. But I never meant for it to go this far. I swear." I felt the floor beneath me tilt. I didn't want to hear this. I didn't want the pieces to fall into place, because if they did, I knew that what I had thought was true was now real. This wasn't just a friendship. This wasn't just work. This was something else, something deeper. And it hurt more than I had expected. I had never been one to ignore the signs, to not trust my instincts. But now, looking at her face, I realized that I had been blind to everything that had been right in front of me. "You don't have to explain anymore," I said, my voice low, as I slowly backed away from the car. The jacket, still sitting there, was a reminder of everything that had changed. I don't think I want to hear it. She stepped toward me, but I held my hand up to stop her. No, Sarah. I don't think I can keep doing this. Not like this. Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not yet. I had so many questions, so many things I needed answers to, but I wasn't sure if I could even bear to hear them. I was angry. No, not just angry, but devastated. I had trusted her completely. I had loved her with everything I had, and now, all of it felt like it was slipping away. How had I missed it? How had I not seen it before? I'm not going to say anything else, she said quietly, her voice trembling as she wiped her eyes. I don't want to lose you. But I can't force you to stay if you don't want to. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. We were standing in the same space, but for the first time in our marriage, I felt like we were strangers. I turned to leave, my legs feeling heavy with every step. I didn't want to confront the truth, but I couldn't ignore it any longer. And the worst part was that I didn't know what to do next. What could I do? The woman I had built my life with, the woman I had trusted more than anyone in this world, had betrayed me in a way I wasn't sure I could forgive. I walked away, the weight of it all too much to carry in one moment. The jacket, now a symbol of everything I feared, stayed behind. I couldn't go back to the way things were, not now. But I didn't know what came next. And as I stood there, the distance between us grew with every passing second. I felt the air between us grow cold, and I wondered if we could ever close the gap. The days that followed were a blur, time stretched out, but nothing felt real. I couldn't stop thinking about the jacket. It haunted me every time I walked past the car, every time I walked into the house and saw the empty spaces where we used to be, side by side. Sarah tried, of course. She reached out, called, texted, each message laden with apologies, regret, and desperation. But it wasn't just her apologies that I needed, it was the truth. And the truth felt more elusive with every word she said. The first night after the confrontation, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every corner of the room suffocating me with questions. What had been happening while I wasn't looking? Where had she been emotionally while I thought everything was fine? And why had she hidden this, buried it so deeply beneath layers of normalcy? I couldn't wrap my mind around it. The silence in the room became unbearable. She slept on the other side of the bed, her back to me, but I knew she wasn't sleeping either. I could feel her presence, but it was distant, far away, as though a divide had been carved between us overnight. The next morning, Sarah tried to talk to me again. She asked if we could sit down and have an honest conversation, and despite every part of me wanting to avoid it, I agreed. I knew this couldn't be swept under the rug, it had to be confronted, no matter how much it tore at me. We sat in the living room, facing each other across the coffee table. There was an awkwardness between us that I had never felt before. It wasn't the kind of awkward silence you could fill with small talk, it was the kind that made you feel like you were in the wrong place, like you didn't belong. The words she had spoken just days before echoed in my mind, and I found myself unable to meet her eyes. She was sitting there, her posture tense, her fingers gripping the edge of the chair. She looked like she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. I know I've hurt you, Sarah said, her voice shaky, her gaze finally meeting mine. And I'm so sorry for that. I didn't want to hurt you, Mark. I never wanted to hurt you. I couldn't respond immediately. I didn't know how. I was still trying to make sense of everything. All the things I thought I knew, all the years we had spent together, now seemed like they were built on sand. She had always been the one I leaned on, the one I trusted. And now, with each passing second, the cracks in our relationship became more evident, more undeniable. I don't understand, Sarah, I finally said, my voice quieter than I intended. I don't understand how you could let this go on. How could you hide something like this from me? How could you sit next to me, sleep next to me, and let me believe everything was fine when all this time, it wasn't? She looked down at her hands, her fingers twisted together, as if she were trying to find the right words to explain herself. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she said softly. I never wanted to hurt you. But she paused, taking a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say something she had been hiding for far too long. I've been feeling something I couldn't explain. For months, I felt disconnected. From you, from everything. And I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to tell you that I felt like I was slipping away, like I was losing myself. So, I buried it. I buried it in work, in other people. And when I started working more closely with him, She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I could feel the anger rising in me again, hot and quick, but I swallowed it down. It wasn't just about what she had done. It was about what she hadn't said. What she hadn't trusted me enough to share. And him? I asked, my voice steady, but my heart pounding. Was it just work? Was it just help from a friend? Sarah's face tightened, and I saw a flicker of guilt cross her eyes. She opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. She shook her head slowly, as if she was trying to find a way to explain without making it worse. It started off innocently, Mark. I promise. But, it wasn't just work. I started relying on him more. More than I should have. I started telling him things I couldn't tell you. Things about how I was feeling, how I felt like I was losing control of everything. And he listened, Mark. He listened in a way that made me feel heard. I never meant for it to go anywhere. I never meant for it to be anything more than that. I could feel my chest tightening as her words hit me. I had spent so many years believing in the strength of our connection, the strength of our love. And now, here I was, hearing about how she had confided in someone else, how she had sought comfort in someone other than me. It was too much to bear. So, what? You just let it happen? I asked, my voice cracking with disbelief. You just let it grow, Sarah? You kept me in the dark, and for what? Because it was easier than telling me the truth. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered again, her voice breaking. I thought I could fix it on my own. I thought if I just kept it together for a little longer, I could work through it without bringing you into it. But I was wrong, and now I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if I can. The room felt small. Her words felt like they were smothering me, like they were closing in on me, trapping me in this moment of devastation. You don't know how to fix it, I repeated, trying to keep the tears from forming. You don't know how to fix it after everything we've built? After everything I thought we were? She reached out, her hand hovering between us, unsure whether to touch me, unsure if I would pull away. I did. I didn't want to feel her touch right now. I didn't want the comfort she was offering because it felt like a lie. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice small and broken. I know I've failed you. I know I've hurt you in ways I never meant to. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if you ever can. But I am here. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. Please, Mark, I don't want to lose you. I stood up suddenly, unable to sit still any longer. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, none of them making sense. The past few days felt like I was drowning, the weight of everything she had said pulling me under, and yet I couldn't quite let go. The love I had for her, the years we had spent building a life together, kept me tethered, even though everything in me screamed to walk away. I don't know what to do anymore, I admitted quietly, my voice raw with exhaustion. I don't know if I can keep going like this, Sarah. I don't know if I can pretend everything is okay, when I know you've been lying to me. When I know you've been hiding things from me that should have never been hidden. Her face crumpled, and she stood up as well, her voice desperate. Please don't leave. Please. I'll fix this. I swear. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't leave me. I turned away from her, my heart aching, my thoughts tangled. I needed space. I needed time to think, to breathe. I couldn't do this right now. I couldn't face the weight of her guilt, her apology, her tears. It was too much. I wasn't ready to forgive her. I didn't know if I ever would be. I need time, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need time to figure out what I want. What I need. I can't do this right now, Sarah. She didn't say anything else, just nodded quietly, as if she knew there was nothing more to say. She watched me as I walked out of the room, her eyes filled with uncertainty, with fear, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stay and keep pretending I could fix something that felt irreparably broken. The silence that followed was deafening. I knew I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet, but in my heart, I knew that things would never be the same. Our marriage, the trust we had shared, the love we had built, it was all shattered. And now, I had to decide whether it was worth trying to piece it back together or if it was time to walk away. I didn't sleep that night. The hours dragged on as I lay awake in our bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing every small noise in the house, every creak of the floorboards, every soft breath Sarah took from the other side of the room. The darkness in the room felt heavier now, not just because of the lack of light, but because the silence was suffocating. I couldn't escape the feeling that everything between us had changed, irreparably, unfixably changed. I had tried to ignore it, to hold on to the person I thought she was, but the truth was too clear now. She wasn't who I thought she was, and neither was I. I had spent the past few days replaying our conversations in my head, over and over again, each one more painful than the last. She said she loved me, that she hadn't meant for any of this to happen, that she had been overwhelmed by everything. But all I could think about was how she had lied to me, how she had hidden things, how she had let someone else into her life in ways that should have only been mine. The man's jacket in our car, the secret meetings, the lies, all of it seemed like a betrayal I wasn't sure I could ever forgive. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But could I ever look at her the same way again? Could I ever feel that trust again? It was hard to even imagine. The love I had felt for her seemed so distant now, a faint memory of something that once was but could never be again. My mind kept asking the same question over and over: how did we get here? How did I let us get here? By the time morning came, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay here anymore, in this limbo between anger and sadness. I needed to face the truth of what was happening, face it head on, no more running from it. I needed clarity, and the only way to get that was to talk to her, one last time, to see if we could salvage anything. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the same. It couldn't be. I found myself walking downstairs, moving through the house like a ghost in my own home. It wasn't home anymore. It had become a place of shadows, of unspoken truths, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I had to try. If there was even a tiny chance to salvage what was left, I needed to give it one last attempt. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. She looked tired, worn out, like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, and she wasn't looking at me. She was looking down at the coffee cup in front of her, as if it could offer her some kind of comfort, some kind of answer that neither of us had. "Mark," she said quietly, her voice strained, breaking the silence. "I don't know what else to say. I've already said everything. I don't know how to make it better. I don't know if I can. But I need you to understand. I never wanted to hurt you." Her words felt like a distant echo, like they had lost their meaning in the face of everything that had happened. I stood there for a moment, just looking at her, trying to decide what to say. The hurt, the anger, the confusion, it was all tangled together in a messy knot in my chest, and I didn't know how to untangle it. I didn't know how to fix this. But I knew I had to say something. I couldn't just keep walking around in this quiet agony. "I don't know where to go from here, Sarah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if I can ever feel the way I did about you. You've taken that from me, whether you meant to or not. I don't know if I can go back to pretending like everything is okay." She looked up at me then, and I saw the tears in her eyes, the rawness of her emotion, but it didn't move me the way it used to. It didn't reach me like it once would have. I wanted to feel for her, wanted to hold her, but the space between us was too wide now. Too deep. "I don't want to lose you, Mark," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I don't want to lose everything we had. I know I've messed up, and I can't undo what I did, but I'm asking you, please, please don't give up on us. Don't give up on me." Her words hung in the air like a plea, but it wasn't just words. It was everything I had been feeling, everything I had been pushing down for the past few days. I wanted to believe her, I wanted to believe that there was still something left to save, but the truth was, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I could ever feel the same way again. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Sarah," I said softly, the words hurting more than I expected. "I don't know if I can look past this. I don't know if I can pretend like everything is okay. You've broken something in me that I'm not sure I can fix." She looked at me with desperation in her eyes, and I could see how much she wanted to hold on, how much she wanted to make it right. But I wasn't sure if that was enough. Could love alone fix this? Could it heal the wounds that had been inflicted over the past months, or was it too late? "I can't promise you anything," I said, my voice heavy with the weight of everything I was feeling. "I can't promise that we can make it through this. I don't even know what I want anymore. All I know is that something is broken, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired." We sat in silence for what felt like hours, both of us afraid to speak, afraid to face what we had become. Her tears were silent now, and I could feel my own tears threatening to fall, but I fought them back. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to be weak. I wanted to be strong, but I didn't know how to be strong anymore. Finally, Sarah spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. "What do you need from me, Mark? What can I do to fix this? What do you want me to say?" I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what I wanted her to say. The truth was, I didn't think there were any words left that could make it better. The damage had been done, and no amount of apologies, no amount of promises could undo it. I need time, I said finally, my voice steady but broken. I need space. I need to figure out if I can ever trust you again. I need to figure out if us, is even worth saving. She nodded, tears running down her cheeks, but she didn't say anything else. She just sat there, her body slumped, defeated. And I realized, in that moment, that we were both broken. She had broken me, and I had broken her. And I wasn't sure there was any way to put us back together. I'm sorry, she said again, her voice so small, so fragile. I'll give you all the time you need, Mark. I'll be here when you're ready. If you're ever ready. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I didn't know if I would ever be ready. But I knew one thing for sure, nothing would ever be the same. I had loved her with everything I had, and she had taken that love and broken it. And now, all I had left was the wreckage, the fragments of what once was. I turned to leave, walking away from her, from everything we had built together. The door closed behind me, and for the first time, I felt the weight of the emptiness. The house, our home, felt like a hollow shell. It wasn't home anymore. It was just a place where two people who no longer knew each other lived. I didn't know what came next. But I knew that I had to find a way forward, whether with her or without her. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes love just isn't enough to fix what's been broken.